Okay, well, I think we will go ahead and get started. Feel free to continue adding moments of joy or letting us know who you are as we move forward. But I want to welcome everyone to our mental health and wellness panel, Cultivating Library Joy, Finding Fulfillment in Everyday Work. My name is Christine Krieger, and I'm the professional development consultant for the Colorado State Library. I'm also going to be tech support for this session, as well as helping to monitor chat as we go through. The session is being recorded, and we have enabled Zoom automatic captions that you can turn on or off as needed. Feel free to keep your video on or off as you feel comfortable, but we are going to ask that you remain muted until the open Q&A portion. So with that little bit of housekeeping aside, it is my pleasure to turn the session over to Jenny, who will provide a couple other details and will help us get the panel introduced.
Thanks so much, Christine. So welcome, everyone, and I'm glad that you've had moments of joy already in your day. As you know, this month's panel discussion is about library joy. And although our focus will be upbeat, I do want to acknowledge that the world right now may not feel very joyful. Instead, it feels a little uncertain, maybe even frightening or chaotic to you. But despite that kind of context, libraries are a powerful reminder of connection, learning, and of course, ultimately happiness. So we're very excited to hear from our panelists today as they share their perspectives on how libraries bring joy to themselves, their coworkers, and their communities. So let's go ahead and get started with introductions. Again, I'm the moderator. I'm Jenny Bowers, the social sciences librarian at the University of Denver, and I use she, her pronouns. So Ashley, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Fahey, she, her pronouns. I am the supervisor of early literacy specialists at Arapahoe Libraries. And I'm very excited to be joining this panel and providing some insight with about library joy with everyone. Thank you.
Great. And so, Ibrahim, you want to go next?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ibrahim Muhammad, pronounced he, him. I work as a systems librarian at Auraria Library and the University of Colorado, Denver. I also teach as a co-lecturer. Excited to be here today and talking about library joy.
Thank you. All right, Jenny. Jenny, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yes, my name is Jenny. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the adult services librarian. I don't like to say adult librarian because it just sounds weird to me. But here at the Belmar Library of Jefferson County Public Libraries.
Great, thanks, welcome. Kara, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Kara Lucas.
Yeah.
I'm an outreach librarian at Front Range Community College, Westminster, and my pronouns are she, her.
Wonderful. And Marie.
Hello, my name is Marie Beyer, and I am also an adult services librarian at Jefferson County Public Library at the Lakewood location, and my pronouns are she, her.
I'm so happy that you're all here, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So for the format of the session, we'll be discussing 8 pre-selected questions, and then after that, we'll be opening it up for Q&A. So feel free to add questions to the chat box throughout the presentation, and then Christine will gather them for that final bit. So, you guys ready? We'll jump right in, straight to the point. What brings you joy in your work at the library? And yeah, Ibrahim, if you want to.
Okay, I will go first. Yeah, honestly, because I believe that joy in our work is not just a nice to have, it's essential. So it's the small wins that no one sees because it's matter. As a person who's working behind the scene all the time, because I'm systems librarian who's not face to face with the patron, it's like when I fix a system issue, update a broken link, or make sure that someone can access database without hitting a wall. I know that it's not that flashy for everyone, but I love that part of my job. Actually, I'm doing every day. So I work mostly behind the scene, as I said, dealing with the systems and technology. Um, uh, every now and then, I'm hearing someone say when I'm walking in the library, "Oh wow, that saved me much time." That makes me feel relieved that my work I have done behind the scene is seen on the other side or beside the big picture. So as someone who's newly immigrated to the US, actually, I have always seen libraries is more than just buildings. It's like places for stability, being part of that, helping others to feel supported and less lost. That's where I find joy, especially when I know that I'm making the journey easier to someone else who might going through what I once did before. Um, in that moment, the library wasn't just a place with books. It becomes a space of belongings to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, that fulfillment in helping others is really, really critical to joy and happiness. Anyone else want to follow up with that?
I'll just jump in. I just kind of like what Ibrahim said about like kind of those small moments. I think sometimes we expect joy to be bigger and grander than maybe it is, and it's sort of they're just looking for those little moments day to day where you've helped somebody, you've connected with somebody. So I really like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna, sorry.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ashley. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the small moments too. You never know what a simple gesture is going to do for a patron. They might be having the worst day ever, and then just like a simple smile, or asking them if they would like a book or a bag to carry their books in. It's just those simple little things that just bring so much joy. And but also, it's the big things too, as well.
I'll just jump in real quick because something just happened here in the back room, the library that brought me joy. And that's one of the things that brings me joy is my coworkers I work with, and one of them just turned the lights off here in the back room and has attached a kind of disco ball light to their phone and is playing music and waving it all around. So, you know, I would say that having good coworkers and supportive coworkers is also well, at least for me, is essential to joy. And yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say that real quick.
Anyone else want to follow up? Definitely coworkers can bring joy. All right. Next question. This is one. How do you define library joy personally? And Jenny, I think this is one that you said you would kick us off with.
Yeah, well, partly I think I just answered a little bit of it, but there's like different components. Like, yes, definitely having fun with your coworkers and having supportive coworkers. Personally, it means to me, being happy in my job, creating moments of library joy for patrons. It means, it means being passionate about libraries. It means like just the sheer enjoyment I have of like just helping people and telling people about all of the wonderful library experiences. Like I was helping out with Edgewater, which is for those who don't know, is a little, like, they call themselves a city, but it's basically like a square mile just just west of Denver had their Pride event this last Saturday, and just I tabled at it and just telling people about the wonderful things that we offer, all of the events that we have, and people just realizing that, wow, a library, as Abraham noted, is more than just books. There's just so much that we have, and yeah.
Tara or Marie, would you like to follow up with that?
I agree with Jenny that libraries are totally just more than books. Sometimes it's like, wow, nobody even came in today and asked me about books because of all the other great things that we have to offer. And I'm just proud to be a part of that community, and that brings me joy.
Yes, I would say that I think that joy is just about anything I can do which makes a patron or a student happy. Whether or not, oh, we have the book on the shelf. They thought they were going to have to request it by interlibrary loan. I can show them a new angle on a research question. Something like that. It can also be broader scale, like, oh, an event I had was very well attended. In addition to, obviously, the teamwork and the camaraderie with the coworkers, that's just invaluable.
Yeah, thanks for that. For me, library joy is definitely centered on people, whether it's working with students and faculty or interacting with my coworkers. But really, those relationships are central to joy for me at the library. Okay. Who would like to share a memorable moment that brought you joy while working in the library? So a specific example.
I got one.
All right.
Yeah. So at my former organization, I was in charge of a program called Reading Buddies, where kiddos who just needed extra support with reading were paired with a teen, like a reading mentor, a big buddy. And I had a little friend, she participated, I think, 4 times. So it was an 8-week program, one in fall, one in the spring. And coming into it, she was not a very confident reader herself. She was shy. She wasn't interested in reading at all. But at the end of her time in Reading Buddies, her mom let me know that she just saw such a huge growth in her daughter. And just knowing that I had helped make that impact on a future reader and a young person, it just was just, I'm kind of getting choked up about it right now talking about it. But just seeing how much growth a library program had on a young person it's just wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
I can go. Like Jenny, I have some fun coworkers who like to do things with music. So over the past couple of months, we've been having mini dance parties to let off steam in our workroom. So we don't get to do it every day, and because somebody's got to be working the floor, not everybody can partake at the same time. But everybody gets a chance to submit a good dance tune that they want to dance to for like 2 minutes. And just every day it's a different song, so different genres and different generations of staff pick all different things. It's just very freeing, and it's something that our coworkers do together to bring each other joy every day. And I think that's all about the support that our team has for each other when somebody's having a tough time with an issue or patron, just life in general. just having great, supportive, fun coworkers make each day just a little bit easier.
I'll go. My daughter is 6, and I've always worked full time. And as a mom, I wonder if I'm getting this right. But we always went. I raised her at story time, so I always went, Tuesday evening and Saturday morning, and noticing it really does have an impact. When she was like 3 years old, and she had this little table and chair set, and she sat out all her stuffies in the chairs, and then she began reading story time and holding the book out and doing all the like mama play hop little bunny and doing all the things that they would do in a story time. And then after I started working at the library, back when we could have family in our workroom, I brought her in one day just needing to print really quick. And, my coworker helped her, like she got us take things out of the book drop. And then we get home and she gets her baby high chair, and that's the book drop, and pokes the lens out of her sunglasses. And I'm being a librarian, and it matters, and it makes an impact. And I love that we're a library family and that we're readers, and that, despite working full time here every day, like I think I'm getting it right with her, raising her here. We spend a lot of hours at the library, so it's really good.
That's a wonderful story, Kenneth. Thanks.
Yeah.
A budding librarian in the making, for sure. Yeah. Any of our other panelists want to chime in?
Yeah, I have a moment to share too. So actually, that moment I'll never forget, because it happens after like a couple of months when I moved from the other side of the world, and I was working in Dubai. Then I moved here to Denver. So I was working in the library, speaking on my phone to some friend in my native language, which is Arabic. So when a student walked towards me, and very gently she asked me if I am Arab, and I said yes. And then she asked me to help her doing some research that she struggled with in the library. And she has some like language barriers because she moved here recently. And she was like smiled and started speaking in Arabic, and she was like felt relieved after that. She was struggling to find that research for her assignment, and wasn't sure how to even begin searching, especially with the language barrier. Once she realized that I'm speaking her language and I understand what she said, and having also the same immigrant experience, because I'm here new as her exactly. It was like something clicked between us, and I helped her find what she needed, and she was mattered about that connection. And it wasn't only able just to help, it's just about being understood from her side. It's that she was felt happy. That's like make me feel like this is a happy moment for both of us. And I felt in myself deeply that this is like why I'm doing what I'm doing, or this is why I'm in this field till now, because I'm in the library field for like 23 years right now, working with the library technology. It's remind me even the tech part is not focused only as the technology, it's focused on the people itself also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Making that connection. It's important. Anyone else want to talk about a specific incident or example?
I can share a couple. So
Okay.
we have therapy dogs, which come to the college 5 times a year, around midterms and finals in the spring and fall semester, and once in the summer. And they're always very well attended. And it really is heartwarming to see the reactions of the students and just how much tension they relieve at a stressful time. Many students aren't able to really have pets of their own, And afterwards, they will oftentimes talk about pets they have or have had. So that's very joyful for me. Another incident has been some of the solar eclipse viewings. I've collaborated with other departments and we have purchased some of the glasses for that. And that was just really fun to be a part of. There was such energy and excitement.
Yeah, I appreciate that reminder too, Kara. That's not only connection with people, but our animal friends as well. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, how important is fostering a sense of joy and positivity in the library environment? And Ashley, do you want to start us with that one?
Yeah, I got that one. Yeah. It's very important. So I'm coming from a public library perspective. And I was thinking of this question in two ways. One, as a workplace, and then two, as a community space. But this would also probably apply for public libraries, or not public libraries, academic libraries across the board. But when thinking about it as a workplace, it's incredibly important. I mean, we spend what, a third of our lives at our job. It's very important to, create that sense of connections with your coworkers, your people you're serving, or else you're just gonna be, miserable. We don't want to be miserable most of our time. And also when you have that joy, you're more engaged with your work, and that means you're able to bring your whole self to work, so you're able to perform very well. But yeah, it's important because we're here a whole a huge chunk of our time. And libraries as a space is very important because we're living in pretty rough times, and we need places where we know we can go that are safe, that have joy, that we know that we can go to for resources, for help, and feel safe and be seen. So yeah, that was my thinking on that response for that question. Yeah.
Thank you. And someone else from the panel. Anyone else? How important is fostering a sense of joy? Or maybe what do you do to foster joy?
I would say that fostering a sense of joy and love is crucial. Because as Ashley said, like, we are living in unprecedented times. Although I feel like I've been living in unprecedented times since like 2001. So like half of my life. But so creating a space that, well, not safe, because no space can be entirely a safe space, unfortunately. Create a space that is welcoming, where people feel like they can be there. Anyone can be there. Recently, like, for Library Week, we had a little activity patrons could participate in, where we asked people to write down what they liked about the library. And it was joyful for us to read them, but also for them to share. And one of the people mentioned how they were so they were just glad to see that and how we created like a space where anybody, from somebody like who's here to just have a warm space or a cool space to be, to like, summer reading. So like, if patrons, creating that space where if patrons are remarking on it, then it must be evident to just more than ourselves, staff, that we are creating that space where people, and not everyone, obviously, I also work at a public library, is going to come in. Not everyone is having, a lot of people aren't having great days, and we can't help people show up, but we can, but in trying to create that welcoming space and that joyful space, I think that can be like the bright moment in somebody's day, or it could just, it creates a space where you come in and you're not stressed out, not, well, I'm gonna say I have several stressed out patrons, but anyways, but in that effect, I think, and that double part of like, how do you create it is, I don't know, maybe I'll let somebody else, I have to think about that. Maybe somebody else has some ideas, but yeah, I would say it's a very important thing to create and have in not just public libraries, but academic libraries and any library that's open to the community.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone else want to say something about how they foster a sense of joy and positivity?
I think one of the things is first you have to be able to look for it. Like you have to notice when those moments of joy happen, and then think about how you can create those moments for others. So sometimes it could be simply, somebody opens a door for you, or once again, looking for kind of those small moments, and then how can you recreate them? And sometimes when I'm having a really bad day, I'll just think to myself, like, how have I helped somebody today? And if I can go back and reflect on that, which I think can be really, really hard in any service job, but libraries as well, as we're going from one patron to the next, to the next, to the next. And sometimes we forget about all those connections we've made and all those small moments because we're kind of like just scurrying on to the next one. So I think you have to recognize it first and then see how you can recreate it.
Yeah, I appreciate those insights. I'll just add, one small example is my colleague Alejandro has fostered joy here as he loves houseplants and succulents in particular, and has offered and made sure that any of us who are interested in having a piece of his wonderful garden in his office, he's spread the joy that way. So appreciate that. Okay, next question is really focused on patrons. What role do they play in contributing to library joy? And Marie, maybe you start us with that one?
Certainly. Well, especially for those of us front facing in the library, certainly if your patrons are not providing you any library joy, you might have a problem. So, and since being available to and assisting patrons is the majority of what I do in the public library, it is a bonus when patrons themselves bring me joy. And I think Jenny mentioned, patrons who come in and make comments about, thank you for being a welcoming place. I'm like, does that same patron come to Belmar that's been coming into Lakewood? He's just this wonderfully nice older gentleman, and he never really has a question for us, but he just says, thank you for being welcoming for all. Just thank you for what you do, and we're glad that you're here. So that's also just so touching. And it is easy to dwell on those negative patron interactions because they kind of like rattle you a bit. But we need just to remind ourselves when we're feeling a bit down about all those wonderful patron interactions that we have. Like Christine says, you got to remember all of those interactions as you're bopping from one person to another, solving all the world's problems. Turn that frown upside down, so to speak. And joy from library patrons comes to me in many different ways. Like, even though technically the adult librarian, I interact with patrons of all ages, and the cute things that the little children do, like they might color a picture and then give it to me, saying, I want you to have this. It's like, or just hearing their laughter in the children's room as they play on the toys with the games, or checking out books and going to programs. And even when Some of them kind of have a little fit as they're being dragged out of the library because they don't want to leave. They just love it so much. And let's not forget about those teens. They can be challenging, but as a former teen librarian, I've had teen advisory board members who, as they've grown up and become adults, have become librarians. Oh, that feels so good to feel like you were a mentor to them. Or they just come in and they visit the library after they've finished high school or college. In fact, I just had one come in last night telling me where he was going off to college and what he was doing. And they say, you know, oh, I loved volunteering at the library. And some of them will even give you a big hug. And adults, of course, come in and thank me for their book recommendations or helping them answer a tough reference request, or when I facilitate a program that they find really valuable. And sometimes there's these patrons who come in and want to talk about books that maybe I've recommended or they have recommended to me. That happens as well. Or they may be asking for advice on which e-reader to buy that's going to work with the library's ebooks. And some just come in, you know, because I think they're lonely and they just want to tell you about what's been happening in their lives. So there is joy. Sometimes you just have to look.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I agree about the children bringing you joy as a fellow adult librarian. Sometimes if I'm able to, I just like to go in and like watch story time a little bit, and it just gives me like a little boost of serotonin because it's just so much joy and so much excitement there. And I also kind of smile / chuckle when I see a parent kind of not really dragging, but like, you know, a protesting child that doesn't want to leave. I'm like, oh, you want to stay here? Like, so nice. I don't want you to lose that. And also patrons, you know, give me joy. I'm really lucky that a large part of my job is programming. And I'm also pretty lucky that I have pretty free reign on like what type of programs I want to do, but like I really like patrons who come and say, "Oh, can we have this event again?" or thank me at the moment, like thank you for having this program. Like I've been hoping for something like this. Or why can't you do this event more than once a year? Because it's so hard to do. um, but you know, just things like that, patrons, because you know, yes, the was it the sticky wheel patrons are gonna like, you know, you're gonna think about those more often, but and they might bring you down, but there's a way to twist it around. You know, like not twist it around, but like make it silver lining of that is that, you know, you can create joy by sharing these like kind of ridiculous stories with friends and family and just being like, you know, just that camaraderie that can bring you joy and like just being able to like, can you believe this thing happened? And like, you know, of course, not using patrons' names or anything like that, but you know, just and also with your coworkers too, and that's part of the coworker thing, bringing you joy. But like sharing about, you know, like good patron interactions and bad patron interactions can also, you know, patrons can bring us joy in ways that maybe we aren't as obvious, I would say.
Hera or Ibrahim, someone from an academic library, want to talk about those patrons and how they bring you joy?
Yeah, actually, they play like a big role in the academic libraries because their feedback is heard. In my previous job before I am coming to the US, I worked for academic library too, and the feedback was going directly to the prime minister office. So that once he or she can open the platform. He can see the feedback about the library. And surprisingly, that all or most of the patrons were happy about the libraries. Like 95% of the patrons are giving positive feedback about the library, and that makes us happy. And they are happy about the seating in the library, about the resources. The only thing that wasn't make them happy that we were having a plan to move to electronic library, so library without books. So they keep asking us bring back the print books because we still love them. We want to sit in the library and read the books physically, not on the screen. So that one of the things that I interacted with the library patrons feedback.
Thank you. Kara, do you want to say anything?
Yes. Well, we often assist some of the students some of the online students with their reference help. And oftentimes I receive thank you letters. And that's very rewarding. This one letter in particular, she talked about how she didn't really know much about libraries and she was intimidated, and that I just really broke it down for her. And that's really rewarding. As a matter of fact, I still have a copy of that on file. Other joyful moments have been recent collaborations. With the business club, I brought in a local entrepreneur. The students were so engaged, they came up with questions in advance. 3 professors brought in their classes for extra credit. 5 professors showed up, all in all. And there was a real desire to see him return. And he himself wants to do that. As well as a collaboration with the Creative Writing Club. They were sharing their readings, and it was just really nice to see a sense of community that evolved from that. Although it wasn't hugely attended, there was very quality discussion. The faculty advisors showed up. 2 of the students are so passionate and engaged that they went in person to the creative writing classes and did marketing. And let's see, there was also an event called the Indie Lens that's held in collaboration with the Sociology Club. And yeah, the library we did some giveaways, had some banned books, and it was just really cool to see the students' excitement to receive a book. Otherwise, it can just be thanking a coworker. It can be even finding an OER, an open educational resource, for a professor. Had one say that they would never have thought of this angle before. So it can really run the gamut for me.
Yeah, thanks for those examples. I know, I work at the University of Denver in research consultations with students and faculty. They bring me a lot of joy just in their research questions. Like I get so much joy in helping them explore their topics, and there's like intellectual joy and just working with people on their research. It brightens my days too. See what time we have. We've got it. Can do a couple more questions. How can we cultivate a culture of joy among library staff in particular? Jenny, do you want to start us on that one?
Sure, I can do that. Well, you should all get one of those little disco lights to attach to your phone. Definitely. Also, you should get a library goose. We have a library goose. Actually, if you want, I could go grab. It's really funny. And it's dressed up in different costumes. Yeah, but you know, if you don't have the budget or the wherewithal to do that, um, cultivating joy. I mean, I think it has to do with like your relationships with your coworkers because, you know, as has been mentioned a couple times now, you know, we spend a large portion of our lives at work. So, um, if you're not, you know, if you don't have a team that, you know, well, not necessarily saying you need to be like buddy buddy with all of your but like a community where you can support each other, back each other up, find, you know, that's why, you know, like I'm saying part of the, you know, back to my previous answer, like, you know, even just having like shared thoughts, feelings, and frustrations about certain patrons, knowing that somebody else feels a certain way, you know, helping you de-escalate from a maybe difficult patron interaction, you know, also, yeah, I would say that your coworkers are really important. I came from a place where I didn't have that as much. So that has been one of the primary um, factors in my current enjoyment of my job is having wonderful coworkers to work with. And while I know that's not always the case, I think cultivating joy for me personally becomes a little harder in that. I think we can cultivate it through, you know, I think a lot of the things we've already talked about, like, you know, great interactions, small moments, patrons, um, you know, again, I guess I am always also all of my library experiences in public libraries, so I can only speak to that. Um, but you know, those smaller moments or I mean, just oh my gosh, just like this morning, like somebody donated these books, and I happened to see it was the like I think it was the entire, unless they actually had seven in series six. Someone brought in the entire, if anybody read the American Girl books growing up, somebody donated like the entire like of Felicity of American Girls, and I have a coworker who loves American Girls, and I brought it over to them, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is my favorite, you know, this is my favorite American Girl," and just bringing, you know, smile, cultivating that joy amongst your coworkers, thinking of your coworkers, and you know, getting to know a little bit of what they like. Gosh, yeah, sorry, I can't be more helpful on the cultivating joy and outside of coworkers because I really truly feel like that's what gives me the ability to go out there and, you know, work with the patrons. And while, you know, you can cultivate joy with your patrons, I think you're spending more time with your coworkers than you are with individual patrons. So I'd be excited and hopeful, since I can't come up with other way, like to speak more on other ways that you can cultivate joy, because I feel like I keep going back to like having a good team to work with, but I know that there are other ways. But without rambling on for longer than anybody wants to hear me talk, I will leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenny. I'm very intrigued by the library goose. I don't know, you might have to go and grab it so we can see this goose. I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions. So Christine, do we have questions in the chat?
I am not seeing questions just yet, but if people have questions that you have come to mind while we've been talking, feel free to put them in chat. Also, feel free to maybe share some of your library joy stories and whatnot in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from people about
Yeah.
that. And kind of while you're thinking about your questions, here's one last one, if anyone wants to take this on. How can we ensure that joy remains a priority in the library workplace? And that's for our panelists and everybody in the audience. How can we make sure that joy remains a priority in the library workplace?
I think Jenny has it there with the library goose. I mean,
There it is.
whatever can make us smile and laugh. Oh my gosh, it's a pride goose. Love it.
The goose has several different wakes too. Um, um,
Hey, well, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for bringing the goose, Jenny. Awesome. Appreciate you all sharing your reflections and experiences. And if we have some questions,
So we do have one question in the chat.
Yeah.
With the world so chaotic, how do you advocate for change? And how that can maybe kind of connect back with joy. And then Marie shared a book, 100 Seeds for Library Joy in the ALA bookstore. So there you have it, folks.
Thanks. Yay.
Anybody want to address with the world so chaotic, how can we advocate for change? And in a joyful way, maybe.
that's a tricky one. Since especially when, you know, get questions from patrons or things like that, is that we can't, you know, as public facing government employees, we can't really, you know, we have to be, and I know this is a contention point in librarianship as a whole right now, but we have to try to be neutral on those things, even though that's, you know, a library. I am of the opinion that a library, it can't be neutral. You know, if welcoming everybody is not neutral, then what are we doing? I mean, you know, I think it's hard to find the ways to, you know, I guess in doing little ways, like I haven't brought this up before, but that's like something that also brings me joy is that, you know, I wear I have a rainbow on my name tag. I wear pins a lot of times. And you know, and even that simple act, you know, it's a silent reminder. And then, you know, I've had people, you know, come to me and thank me for wearing those pins, or, you know, approach me because I've made myself seem more approachable. So again, you know, while again, we're supposed to be neutral, I can't be neutral. People can't be neutral about their identities, and I can't be neutral about being a queer person. Like, you know, that's just sorry, like this gets into a larger, I could definitely ramble because it feels like such a large, I want to say divisive, large question that like I don't have an easy answer for, really. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, advocate for change, just be.
Ooh, we lost your
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
Oh, how did
That was
I
weird.
did not turn it off. Uh, but yeah, how I mean, being as much of a calming you know, to address the chaotic, you know, because yeah, people are coming in. I'm noticing patrons are more stressed out, more, you know, worried about what's going on in the world around them. And, you know, just maybe this is addressing more of the joy impact versus like change, but just meeting them where they're at and providing that calming presence and doing what you can for them to provide them services, like I guess is how you know, in being welcoming and creating opportunities for learning. It is essentially, you are trying to provide them access to information, and I'm a big believer in that, free access to information. And that can be a can't think of the word, you can use information to change your mind, to change your opinion. Like that can be a way forward as far as creating change, is, you know, to just open people's minds and eyes to like the world of information that they can access for free, or not restricting it. So yeah, sorry, I don't think I really answered the question, but it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Somebody put in chat, I think we have to take care of ourselves so that we have the energy to continue working on all of the hard things that we deal with in our jobs and in our life. For me, part of taking care of myself means being on the lookout for whimsy and joy. And I kind of think like I spend way too much time on social media, even in these times, which probably can bring down my joy. But there's like a meme that keeps popping up over again about how joy can also be resistance. And I think that that is key, is like it can be very easy as human beings to get sucked into the dark, but you can fight the dark while inviting in the light. And I think that that is key. And I say that as somebody talking about whimsy. I am an Eeyore. So it's not, doesn't come naturally to me, but I think that that's part of it, is how can we find those moments of joy so that we can fill ourselves up? How can we fill other people up? And how can we fill our patrons up? And someone else says that joy starts at home with a gratitude journal and looking for the small moments and documenting them. Yeah, write them down. And then Ibrahim shared, I believe, leveraging empathy and personal stories to connect with people on a deeper level. And he shared a couple stories with us today, which are amazing. So yeah.
Christine, I'm glad you said joy is resistance, because that little book, 101 Seeds for Library Joy, the big quote of this book is joy is resistance. So resist those who are trying to bring you down by finding joy in the little things. And keep in mind that, you know, you can only do what's in your control. And you probably can't see it, but they're just they're little drawings.
It's a joyful book.
So each page, and it's so small. So it's easy to flip through and find something that speaks to you. But
yeah.
So one of the things in the book that really gave me a reminder of you can find joy everywhere is consider what still brings you joy, what will still bring you joy in 5 years' time, and how may you give those things energy today.
So there's a question in chat that says, with all of the emphasis on metrics and showing value from higher ups, how do you help administrators see the importance of having a joyful and sometimes silly workplace? And I know some of our panelists might have some information to share about that, but a colleague of mine did a session on play, a webinar on play that I'm going to find and pop into chat, that literally talks about how you can incorporate play at work and what those benefits are. So that might be of help also. And somebody else says, I recently came across the idea of keeping a contribution journal, a record of the ways in which you've done things for others. Yeah, that's a great idea. And whoever was asking about the metrics question, you might also just need to get a library goose. I feel like I think they're going to sell out. And then morale is important. There's data about morale. Forced fun doesn't work. Like there are play styles. You can research that. There are play styles. So once again, not every location would respond to the library goose, but there are different ways. And maybe that's another thing to think about is what are the different ways that individual staff members can contribute to joy at work, because we're all different people and we experience joy in different ways. So, and treats and sugar, of course.
Yes, food is very important. I will agree on that. Yeah. Like sometimes we'll have like a potluck where people bring in food and share food with, and that always brings people. Food is really an opportunity to bring people together. I really feel like, yeah. It also will bring people to programming like nothing else.
Any other questions from the registrants today or attendees? Sorry, I couldn't think of the right word. What are you guys? People have shared some really great stuff in the chat. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of our panelists for agreeing to share with us today. And I want to thank Jenny for being our wonderful moderator for today. She did a fabulous job. But I also want to thank all of the attendees for joining us today. Just taking time out of your very busy summer reading has started, my friends, workplaces to sit with us for a moment and think about library joy and the ways that we can bring joy to work. As mentioned before, the recording will hopefully be available by sometime tomorrow, and I will use the registrant list to email everybody when it is ready, along with an anonymous survey where you can share your thoughts about today's panel. And I will also provide information on how you can get a certificate for attending. So all of that will be in an email that you should receive tomorrow. But once again, I really wanted to thank our panelists for sharing all of their great thoughts and ideas and stories about how we can all maybe experience a little bit more library joy. And thanks again, Jennifer, for being our moderator.
Yeah, thanks for running the show, Christine.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a joyful rest of your afternoon.